Hi, everyone. I am award-winning author AJ Park. I am the author of War's Ending, and I love to read and write fantasy. That's my favorite thing. And so I'm really happy to be able to do this interview today with MHWoodscourt. She is awesome. We have really enjoyed exchanging notes and stories and just having a really good time getting to know each other. I did have the opportunity to read her first book, The Crow King, a few weeks ago, and I loved it. It was a great book. She did a wonderful job with it. And so I'm really, really excited to have the chance to bring you this interview where we can get to know her a little bit more. And she's going to also be telling us about her new book. The paperback was just released, and the ebook is going to be coming out in, what is it, a couple of weeks?
Yeah, in about a month.
About a month. So we're really excited for that. So thank you for being with us here today. I think everyone's excited to know you a little bit better and to, hear about your work a little bit. So to ask a first question, so you've written a ton of fantasy. You've been doing this for a long time. What is it that you love about fantasy? What's the best part of this genre for you?
Well, that's hard to make succinct, but I'll do my best. And
You can
also,
have a novel or two to tell us.
yeah, it's true. It's true.
Just not right now. We've only got a few minutes, so go ahead.
And I want to thank you also, AJ, for interviewing me and reaching out.
My pleasure.
So with fantasy, I guess my love of fantasy has always existed. From when I was a little tiny toddler, and I would play Barbie games or whatever, and it was usually a medieval setting. There's just something that's always appealed to me about dragons and knights and that kind of thing. And then it was really solidified when I, as a very young teenager, watched The Fellowship of the Ring in theaters, and I fell in love with Middle Earth.
Oh, that's one of my favorites too. That's one of my favorites. So
Oh,
I agree totally.
oh yes. And I walked out of that theater, and it was really world changing for me. And I went home and started plotting my first fantasy novel. So I'd always been a writer.
That's awesome.
But that was where I was like, it's fantasy or bust.
Woohoo! I love it.
So it appeals to my imagination more than anything.
That's a great answer. I think that's what a lot of people love, just that sense of anything is possible, and other worlds can exist, and we can imagine anything that we want. And that freedom to me is the freedom to just let your imagination go crazy. And I love that. I think that's the best part about being a writer.
Oh, agreed.
So I would have some input on this too. I'm going to ask you, what are your strengths as a writer? I mean, the first thing I noticed is that your descriptions were exquisite. Like I noticed that like in the first page, but tell us, what do you think you're best at as a writer?
Well, the thing that's been the hardest for me, I think, if it's not my strength, I'm fighting really hard to make it my strength, because my weaknesses I want to completely destroy. So for me, the longest thing that it's taken for me to learn is to show, not tell. And you hear that all the time. Show, don't tell. And I just would plow through my stories, and I couldn't quite figure out what that meant. Like I couldn't translate it from my mind onto the page. And then I ran into a pamphlet that just changed. I don't know. I read it in a couple of hours, and suddenly I was like, it makes sense. And I went through a manuscript over the next week and just transformed it. And it just,
that's awesome,
changed everything. I was like, I'm really a writer. And it really actually was the day that I felt legitimately like I was an author, not just an amateur scribbling on a page. So
that's awesome. I love it. Love it. Love it. Okay. So we're going to be looking for that as we read, for sure. So do you have anything in your real life? Do you have any crazy stories that you want to tell us that have affected your writing?
There is one, and it's actually one of the most heartbreaking and heartwarming moments in my life. It was 2008, a couple weeks before Christmas. my house and all of my belongings, my pets, everything went up in smoke.
Oh no. And your pet, you didn't get your pets out. I'm
No.
so sorry.
Yeah, it was the most horrible night I've ever experienced. And there are moments when it's still very painful, but it also taught me, I guess, when I looked at it on the other side. It was one of the most profound Christmases that I've ever experienced. The community really pulled together to help my family and give us the needs that we like, the blankets that we needed, and toothbrushes, and
Wow.
the basic stuff that you just take for granted.
Right.
And when we really had nothing, we just had the most important thing, and that was each other. And we could have lost somebody in the fire, and through just last minute circumstances, nobody was home. And the house was gone in 10 minutes. So
wow.
Yeah, it was
What an
pretty crazy.
experience.
And I'm not saying I would want to do it again, but everybody in the family kind of turned to me as we were trying to find the humor in it, because you have to find the humor in a bad thing. Everybody turned to me and they said, "This is for you, isn't it? We went through this just so that you could figure out how to write tragic things."
It was that life experience that you're going to build on forever.
Right. And I look back on that, and I had a story in my mind at the time about somebody he loses his family in a house fire. And I was like, now I can literally write that. I may not have lost people, but I lost everything else.
Wow.
And so now I can take it and really build from the heart.
As a writer, the thing that I don't know, this is maybe a terrible confession, but I have boxes and boxes of notes and notebooks and ideas and, things squirreled away and old versions of things. And I'm not going to lie, I'd be really upset if they were all gone. And did you have a collection like that?
I did. I had years and years worth of things. Now, fortunately, I had my computer with me.
Well, thank goodness.
I didn't lose most of my manuscripts. I did lose a couple that were just printed, but
wow.
I need to rewrite them anyway, so it's okay.
Can you remember them though? Hopefully.
I can. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good. I think I've written a ton of things that if they were gone, I would never remember them again. So anyway, so bless you for having a good memory, and what an experience. Wow. I'm glad everybody was okay. That was I'm sure it was a very traumatic experience, and it's awesome to find the good in it and to find what you can learn from it and move forward.
Well, it really bolstered my faith in humanity when people come together for a good cause. And so I'll never forget that. So
that's great. I love it. Love it. Love it. Thank you for sharing that. So we've all been waiting for this moment. So tell us about your new book. We're super excited to read it. It's a duology, right? So you've got a set of two. I read the first one, so I really want to read the second one. We got to find out what happens. So tell us more about the new book.
All right. Well, so as you said, the paperback has been released. I released it yesterday. And I couldn't wait anymore. It was ready to go. And so I went ahead and released that to celebrate my birthday. So that I was just like, I'm going to give myself this gift. And
happy birthday.
Thank you. So it is, the ebook version is coming out on February 6th.
Okay.
And pre-orders are available on Amazon and Apple Books and Google Play and Barnes & Noble and all these places online. So if you're interested in pre-ordering, it is available. Okay. I do have a pre-order price as well. So you'll get the best deal if you order it now.
Nice. I'll have to make sure I do that.
So it is a duology. This is the conclusion. It's the second half. Originally it was going to be one book, but it grew out of my hands, so I just split it into two. So that's how that happened. The fun fact for me is, as a side note, is that I am a huge American Revolutionary War enthusiast. I love to read about the American Revolutionary War, especially George Washington. He is my hero. And as I was reading my favorite biography on him for like the umpteenth time, I was like, this would make such a good fantasy story.
I love
And
it.
so I took it and I twisted it and kind of reshaped it into something that was going to work more in a medieval setting. But so the main character, Gwyn, he is loosely based on George Washington. So he has some of his characteristics, an older half brother that he adored, and
Mhm.
a lot of those. And it was probably the easiest writing I've ever done. So I'm really excited to share it with audiences, and I'm loving the positive feedback so far, and I hope everybody likes the conclusion because.
So hopefully he's going to overthrow the evil regime and, you know,
Stay
everything's
tuned.
going good. You hope so too? Well, don't tell us. I mean, we assume we're hoping that things are going to go really well for him in the second book, but we don't want to know too much about what's going to happen.
You'll just have to read it.
Definitely, definitely. Well, that is awesome. And I'm sure you've got lots of other great projects. I do happen to know you've got a great stockpile that we're all waiting, to have those released so we can read more. So do you have another project that's on the horizon right now?
I do actually. I'm doing final edits for a book that I'm thinking will be released either end of April, 1st of May. And
That's
so that one's
great.
pretty
That's
exciting.
soon.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. My goal is to generally release about 3 books a year, give or take. So
That's really exciting. We'll have to be watching for them. Do you want to just take a second and tell everybody where, give us just your website and where they can follow you on social media so they can find more information?
yeah, absolutely. So my website is MHWoodscourt.com. That's pretty straightforward. And then
Mhm.
if you want to find me on Twitter and Instagram, my handle is Woodscourt Books. Facebook is also MHWoodscourt. And you can follow my page on there, follow me on Instagram and Twitter. I am on Instagram more than Twitter. But I love to engage with people and just talk books and fantasy and anything really.
That's awesome. Well, you've done a great job with the first one, and I can't wait to read the second one. And I'm sure everyone else is going to be really excited to see it too. So great job. And thanks for taking the time to talk to us today. And we'll definitely do more interviews, and we will keep an eye on you. I'm sure you're going to do great things. It's going to be wonderful. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, AJ. It's great to be here. I appreciate it.
Thank you. See everyone later.
Bye.